Hi, I'm Heather, and this is knitting update number 17 for Thursday, January 29th, 2026. It is nighttime here, as you can probably tell because it is pretty dark, and I'm looking pretty rough just because of the lighting. Let's not panic. Okay, I want to show you my knitting updates, my knitting progress. So first off, I actually did some of the Visible Mending. I sat down and looked at the Visible Mending book this morning, and I decided to try my hand at it, but I did the less holy of the socks. So I'm not quite done yet because I didn't weave in the ends, because I don't like to do that until I know for sure I'm happy with a project. Like even with my socks and everything, I don't bother weaving in the ends until later, even though it does annoy me to have all these loose strings hanging around. But this one didn't have any actual holes in it, but it definitely was getting thin. So I just did some, I think it's called seed stitch weaving, darning weave or something, to sort of reinforce the heel. And I wanted to just try it out to see if I liked how it looked before I did it on the actual holy heel. I think I do like it, so I'll probably do it on the other sock. Not today, but maybe tomorrow. And just for your information, I use the Madeline Tosh twist sock, and then the amble, I don't remember the color or anything about this one, but I'm using this for the vintage lamp sock, and then I'm using this for the Pearl Ridge shorty sock. And I like the color combos. I think it's nice. The dark one kind of does match the dark of this in the sock, and the bright one is a little contrasty, so I thought that was kind of fun. And then the only other thing, I did work on my Escher beanie a little bit, but I only knit like 5 rows. I kind of thought maybe I would actually get it done today, but then I didn't end up working. I ended up being motivated to do the mending, and then I actually worked on something else that I will show you in a minute. So I will not show you that, but there has been a little bit of progress made. But I did make a good amount of progress on my Sunken Cathedral sock. Okay, so I think I'm about an inch away from being able to start the heel, and this one is a Fleagle heel, so I do like to kind of just sit and do it all at once. Oh no, I dropped a stitch, with no interruptions, so I can just kind of bang it out without having to keep track of where I'm at, really. And last time I did that, it actually didn't take that long at all. So I think if I get that, I think I'll get to that point tomorrow, even if I don't work on it tonight. Sorry, I just don't want to leave this drop stitch and forget or have it get worse. So, okay, it's fixed. So yeah, about an inch shouldn't take me that long. If I feel motivated to work on it tonight, I for sure can at least finish the leg, and then I can start the foot tomorrow, or the heel and the foot potentially. But I'm really happy with how that's going, and yeah, I love how it looks. And then other thing that I worked on today, instead of doing some knitting, I decided to actually do some sewing. And I used to sew a lot. I used to sew all my own clothes. I love sewing. Then I kind of got sick of making garments because it just got to be too much. Like I had too many. So then I started sewing quilts, which also was great because I could use the scrap leftovers from my garment projects to make something new. And but I haven't been sewing quilts in a while because honestly it's been a little bit physically hard for me to do. So I guess I can show this. I mean, I've talked about having cancer. So in the end of 2019 I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and then 2020 I went through cancer treatment. That's when I started quilting, and then about a year and a half later I was having a lot of pain in my back and my sides, my ribs. I thought I just had really tight intercostal muscles, like in between the ribs. So I was trying to treat it by just going to the chiropractor and acupuncture, stuff like that. Nothing helped, and then finally I went back to my oncologist, and turns out I had bone cancer. So the breast cancer is now metastatic, and it spread to my bones, and it caused fractures in my spine, and then later on fractures in my pelvis, and lots of pain. Like my whole right side was always very painful. I don't know if there were fractures anywhere else, but then I got frozen shoulder because I was also on a lot of hormone blocking treatments and oral chemo and stuff like that. Since then, I haven't really been able to sew that much because it's just too uncomfortable for me to do it. And even today was still kind of hard, but I definitely felt like I could push through and I could sew a whole project bag. Look at her. Isn't that so stinking cute? And the strings, so the fabric is from Ace and Jag, one of their scrap packs, or 2 or 3 of their scrap patch kits. And when I ordered them, they came wrapped in these Ace and like fabric, their fabric little drawstrings, or now I'm using them as drawstrings. So I had made Ace and Jag quilt before with their patch kits or scrap packs or whatever, and I'll post a picture of it here. It's with my mom now. I think she actually bought it for me because I was selling a couple years ago. I had too many quilts, so I was selling a couple of them, and my mom bought one. I ordered more. They only do release these scrap packs or patch kits, whatever you want to call them, like every 6 months. So I was lucky enough to snag another batch of them. I think I ordered 3 packs this time. And they didn't really have enough fabric to make a whole quilt this time around. So I was really hanging on to them and waiting and checking all the time to see when they released another like batch of the patch kits. And then unfortunately the last time they did it, I couldn't order them, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's because they're only doing US, so I don't know what was going on. But then I decided, well, I can't keep hanging on to these forever, and I had already sewn a bunch of them up. I had sewn them into these half square triangles, and I had a quilt in mind that probably would have looked cute, but if I can't get more of the fabric, then there's no point. So I thought, why don't I make myself a really cute project bag? So I used the Frankie bag, or whatever, Frankie project bag by Cool Stitches, and it is sort of a free pattern or pay what you want pattern, but I actually used, she also has a bunch of videos in her stories. I don't think it's really a tutorial, but it does show, it was for sew along. And so I use that because I find the other thing about sewing is I can't handle like the measuring and the pattern pieces and all that. Like I just can't be bothered right now to do any of that. So I did this just using the video tutorial. It wasn't full-on instructions, so I don't know if I did everything right, but honestly I'm really happy with how this turned out. I also can't believe how densely I quilted this. It took me at least 2 hours and at least 2 bobbins of thread because of how much quilting there is. So the front fabric, like I said, is Ace and Jag, and then I also, people are gonna maybe kill me for this, but I had bought a not so perfect linen dress from my local consignment store. It's pretty cheap, but it just wasn't my style, and also it didn't fit me properly. So I decided instead of like donating it or whatever, I just used the linen to make this quilt square. I still have a lot of it left, so I'm gonna make more stuff with it too. And then the back side is linen from Blackbird Fabrics in the colorway Limeade, which isn't really showing up true to color because it's getting dark out. And then the inside fabric is also from Blackbird, and it is this cloud cotton twill. I thought that was really cute. I was going to use it for the backing of a quilt, which I probably still will. I have 4 meters of it, and I didn't use that much for this bag. But yeah, and then the drawstrings, I love this. It's also Ace and Jag, like I said. I didn't do the best job. The front is sort of improv quilted, even though I think it looks not that improv-y. Once I did have to like obviously square it up for this pattern, and then I kind of just eyeballed the grid pattern for the quilting lines. I mean, I didn't straight on eyeball it, but I didn't plan any of it out. So I'm really happy with how it looks. I also was super happy, this is maybe weird, but I was texturally and sensory wise, sewing this grid on this linen was like one of the best things ever. I was having so much fun, A, and then B, it just like feels so nice, like the bumps on this like smooth linen. I don't know how to describe it, and maybe I sound like a weirdo, but I really enjoyed that. And then it was a bit harder to quilt on the front with, it was a little bit more uneven with like the seams and the extra fabric for the seam allowance. So I feel like this side doesn't look as neat, unfortunately, even though I did it second, so I'd have all the practice of doing the backside first, but probably the backside looks a little bit neater. But you know what? I'm totally fine with how it turned out. Actually, I love it so much. When I showed my husband, he was like, oh, that's for me, right? And I was like, no, sorry. But I can make him one if he really does actually want one, because I have 4 more of these blocks. This one is just my favorite because it has green, but the other ones are really cute too. So technically I could make 4 more of these, but they won't have the strings, and I probably wouldn't even make fabric ones because I just can't imagine how much of a nightmare it is to like make these tiny tubes. So I have rope because I used to do macrame, and I think that's what I would use to do the drawstrings of any other bags like this. But yeah, I thought that was super fun, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And it's not like I really need more project bags, but it is kind of nice to have another project bag. And to be honest, I don't really use like a project bag. I kind of use more baggy bags or tote bags. And I had made a project bag before, but then I ended up giving it to my friend. It's nice. It's a nice way to use up like spare blocks. Sometimes I start doing like an improv quilt and I sew a bunch of stuff together, and then I don't necessarily love where it's heading, so I kind of just leave it there. But it doesn't mean I wouldn't make a good project bag or something that could still be functional, but it doesn't have to, not everything has to turn into a quilt. I think that's it for me for today, but I will see you tomorrow. Bye.